The millionaire sheik speaks Arabic. Only black maid replies, shocking everyone. She's not on the manifest. She replied to him in Arabic. Gasps echoed. The white crew stood frozen. The billionaire had spoken, and the only one who understood. Was the black maid everyone ignored? Seconds later, she ripped open a panel, exposing wires wrapped in military tape. Chaos followed. Screams, smoke, a hijack in motion. But she wasn't panicking. She was calculating. They never expected the maid to save the sheik. This is the untold truth behind the millionaire sheik speaks Arabic. Only black maid replies, shocking. Everyone, welcome, story lovers. Where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our stories travel. At 38, Sheikh Tariq El-Hamidi was known not just for his wealth, but for his silence. A tech billionaire. From the Gulf, he rarely spoke English in public, only Arabic, his mother tongue. That morning, he boarded his private jet in Cape Town, bound for Geneva, accompanied by a small crew. 2 white South African pilots, 3 attendants, and a soft-spoken black maid named Lindy. She was new, hired through a contractor, unnoticed until the moment that changed everything to most. It was just another opulent flight. But Tariq wasn't just flying for leisure. His empire had recently backed a controversial African political candidate, and enemies were everywhere. As he stepped on board, his gaze lingered too long on the flight crew. Something felt wrong. But he brushed it off. Outside, the sky was calm. Inside, turbulence had already begun to form. And the only person who could see it coming was the one no one listened to. 30 minutes before takeoff, Lindy crept between compartments, adjusting glasses and wiping surfaces no one would notice. But she saw everything. One of the attendants kept glancing at the cockpit too often. The other seemed unusually focused on a panel near the galley, where aircraft wiring ran hidden. Lindy had seen this before. Years ago, she wasn't a maid. She was a South African intelligence operative, trained in higher-risk counterterrorism. She left after a raid went wrong, costing her best friend's life. Now, she lived quietly until this job, as she entered the crew area to dispose of trash. She caught a glimpse of a shadowy blueprint tucked behind a service manual. She froze. Bomb schematic. Taped behind the wiring access panel, her heart raced. No one would believe her. Not the white captain, not the icy blonde stewardess, and certainly not the billionaire who hadn't spoken a word to her. But then it happened. Sheik. Tariq asked for water in Arabic. The attendant stared blankly. Lindy replied without hesitation, her accent flawless. He blinked, a flicker of recognition. She continued speaking calmly, discreetly mentioning the schematic she found, using coded phrases from her intelligence. Dazed, his eyes widened. But before they could act, the attendant who had lingered too long outside the cockpit moved a sharp motion. A switch was flipped. Lindy lunged. The lights flickered, the plane doors sealed, and 30,000 feet away from help. The clock had started ticking. The cabin erupted in chaos. Alarms blared, artificial but convincing. Smoke hissed from a device under a seat. Passengers panicked. But this wasn't about fire, it was about distraction. Lindy grabbed the emergency phone, overriding the flight lock system with a master code she wasn't supposed to know. The pilots had been replaced. It was all a setup. The flight crew was never certified. They were contractors, planted by a rival political faction. She sprinted into the cockpit just as the plane banked unnaturally. One saboteur reached for her, but she slammed him with the extinguisher. Tariq followed behind, shaken but alert. Together, they pulled the jet into manual override. One breath, one mistake, 1 second from a fireball. But the assassin failed because the maid wasn't just a maid. Dear audience, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to give it a like. It helps. The jet landed emergency style in Lagos. Authorities swarmed the tarmac. 3 imposters arrested, explosives disabled. But the headlines didn't tell the whole story. Lindy refused an interview. She declined the reward. Her job had been to save lives, not seek applause. Tariq, however, changed. He gave a speech in English and Arabic praising the invisible protectors we ignore. He revealed how racial bias nearly cost him his life. How the only one who spoke his language, who truly saw what was happening, had been a black maid. Ignored by design. It wasn't just a failed assassination, it was a lesson in perception, in prejudice, in listening to the voices we overlook. So next time, ask yourself, who are you not listening to? And what might it cost? Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories and new videos. Take care.